chair a meeting of the Piermont Comprehensive Plan Committee. Our agenda for today is to go over the numerous changes in the latest draft that we have made to confirm that we've captured them all. And if we have, to approve the plan to be transmitted to the Board of Trustees for the next step in the process. This is a public meeting, but public comments are not part of today's meeting. But part of the overall process is the Board of Trustees are required to create opportunity for oral and written comments on the draft that they will prepare, ultimately leading to a final plan. We received scores and scores and scores of constructive comments and suggestions at the public meeting and in written form, and the committee has spent the time to go over every single suggestion, most of which were accommodated in one form or another. What we want to do today is give you a high-level view in a red line version of the areas in which changes have been made. And as soon as practically possible, we will post this new draft in red line version and clean version so that you can see where the changes have come. So with that, I want to turn it over to Max, who will go through these high-level changes, and we will have a discussion to make sure we've captured everything that should be in this latest draft, and then move it to an approval.
And if anybody, if I'm not talking loud enough, if anybody has trouble hearing me, and you're in the front already, let me know, because we don't have things working today.
And if you need to get closer, grab a chair and get closer.
Oops, right here. So this is the working draft that we got to most recently. We have changed this second paragraph to the end, sort of, to flow better. We changed statements about providing access to a variety of housing options to, or providing economic development opportunities, to maintaining economic development opportunities and continuing to provide access to a variety of housing options, to make it clear that you're not seeking new economic development opportunities, you're not seeking new housing opportunities, but to maintain the existing ones. You've added that you'll seek new opportunities for open space conservation. You added your preserving vistas, some word changes here, and you've added an emphasis on young families in terms of your recreational opportunities. This last paragraph is sort of a restructuring of that previous second paragraph, where you talk about how this existential impact down the road of sea level rise is going to occur beyond the 10-year horizon of this plan, but that it needs to result in groundwork and action now, and that initial action will be to consider relocation or restructuring of village-owned administrative and service facilities, but that any adaptation must be consistent with character, forward-looking, and sustainable. Okay, see. Some of these are word choice and syntax and grammar, but hit the key ones. These aren't significant. We did add a statement clarifying that Volume 2 is a accounting of the inventory and analysis that the CPC relied upon while preparing this plan, and to clarify that it is not updated at this time, that it's a data book, that it does not contain policies or recommendations of the Village of Piermont, which are solely contained in Volume 1. So we added some additional information on the process that has occurred since the CPC public hearing. So previously, each chapter was preceded by a summary of the information that was included in volume 2. These were taken out in favor of introductory sections that give background. It reads a little bit more naturally and provides context for the recommendations that follow.
Sometimes brevity
Yeah.
doesn't work.
No, it doesn't, right? So this is an accounting or a more context-heavy version of those bullet lists.
That's maybe worth noting, just going back to the background conditions.
Yep.
Because you're talking about the pier as an open space park, because that was a comment.
Yeah.
I'm on page 11.
On page 11. Which paragraph?
The last one on page 11, although you and I may be on different.
Yeah.
Instruction, it's the next paragraph down.
Okay.
Largely reflects how the village grew over time.
Yes, and that is, again, reflective of some information gaps, I think, onto the degree to which Piermont landing open spaces are sort of restricted either by easement or by dedication or some other legal mechanism. So we didn't have that information. That the village has that information available. So until that's done, we have to sort of refer to these things as open space / park resources. So there was some changes made to the goal again, rather to encourage a different land use pattern. Go ahead.
Can I just, again, I'm gonna bring you back to page 12,
Sure.
because I thought that was helpful for us, to understand the change there. The village is largely built out paragraph.
Yes, that's right. There was a lot of confusion about the bulleted statement that talked about 76 additional units. And this is intended to clarify that that is basically in a quick arithmetic analysis of what the current zoning would allow if applied to remaining vacant parcels in the village. So that was clarified that that's not a recommendation for 76 new units, and that actually those 76 units don't account for the fact that many of them are encumbered by steep slopes or flood risk, and then refers you back to the actual analysis, which has the calculation of volume 2. The changes into goal, the goal here is to, rather than encourage, but rather to affirm and maintain existing land use patterns. And also to, again, put the sea level rise into the goal. The first recommendation was this idea of having the 9W receiving area, the possibility in the future that the school, happens the elementary school property, could become available, and that could be a place where the village retreats to as sea level rise occurs. It was worded in a way that wasn't clear, and frankly, it was probably more planning than needed to be done at this phase, because those that level of sea level rise isn't going to happen likely during the 10 years that this plan is even operative. So the CPC wanted or instructed me to be more vague and to talk instead about the effort of trying to find ways to relocate community facilities, housing, and commercial uses as they are lost to sea level rise without identifying any particular area, rather a process that the village would start to seek for those areas. D3 just talks about the 2 unmapped zoning districts to remove them from the zoning. D5 is just a little bit of a word change. D1 again, we're talking again here about getting rid of, this is only here because it's in the track change version, by the way. So this is proposed for removal. This will not be in the next version. And the idea here again is to change the idea of the 9W receiving area to the process for beginning to plan for where fire department, the town hall, all of these facilities, DPW will be relocated to, and talk about also whether or not it makes sense even to start considering relocation of the downtown at some future point. Because without the downtown commercial district, you have to have this existential decision about whether the village is even going to continue as a village. All of that's down the road though, so this is again about laying the groundwork for those future plans.
But Max, it's fair to say that within plan overall, that the committee is asking the village to begin that work now. While we're.
Yes, yes, exactly. So again here, zoning designation, this is just a clarification, should reflect existing conditions. This is the recommendation with the downtown. It has been significantly recast, but again, the idea here is that the downtown zoning doesn't fit the downtown, and this comp plan is recommending that it be written to reflect what's currently built and to place density restrictions consistent with what exists today. Because under
You
current...
say that, say it again.
Yeah, so currently business B has no density restrictions. And we want density restrictions that would cap the number of apartments you can build in the downtown. Somewhere currently average is 1,150 square feet per unit, and the median is 1,320 square feet of lot area per unit. And the recommendation would be that any regulation that is cast would be between those two, or in range of those two. So, there was a note about castellated pediment, which was just a wrong term. It was meant to be decorative parapets. I don't know where castellated pediments came from, but
I want to know what it is.
yeah. Figure D1 zoning has been revised to reflect the business B as currently is valid. It does not show the CDM. Climate change resiliency, same thing here. We're taking out the bullets and adding a background condition. We did add 2 recommendations, one regarding wildfire risks, and another, we're seeking funding to explore programs to buy out and demolish flood damaged structures so they don't remain as vacant shells that can be blighting on the neighborhood. We clarified that some of the recommendations that talk about 30 inches here, Columbia University predicts that as happening as early as 2050. DEC predicts 12 to 23 inches over that time, but 30 inches by 2080 under median projections. So all of those numbers were clarified. We clarified that the FSO district, this is the district that will limit, expansion or construction within the area between the current shoreline and the projected shoreline for 2050. You'll have to go to the zoning board to expand or construct in that area. And that is clarifying that it will be for the entire shoreline, not just one area of shoreline. There was some question, the way that this was phrased previously was confusing, and it was clarified that this flexibility for height measurement will be measured from the highest of 3 standards: existing average grade around the structure, which is how it is measured today; elevation 6.61 feet, which is the projected elevation of mean high water at the time that 30 inches of sea level rise has happened, or 54 inches above the highest base flood elevation, which is 30 inches of sea level rise plus 24 inches of freeboard, which is required by the building code. Yeah, so this is just a word change, need to wish. Again, this is a removal of that specific recommendation of identifying the Tappan Zee Elementary School as a receiving site. So these are some word changes. Again, some removals that talk about recommendations that are taken out. Somebody had mentioned that we should consider, instead of a composting program, providing a drop-off for the town's composting program. So that was added. Here's the recommendation as regards wildfire, some more details on that recommendation to have the DPW make sure it's clearing hazardous brush from public lands, that the village is preparing emergency services to fight wildfires, and that there's educational efforts reaching out to property owners to how to make their properties more resilient to the possibility of wildfires. Here's the idea of, again, seeking funding and or programs that would allow the village to remove any flood damaged structures in the future, which are anticipated to become more frequent. Okay, these are I did not include the graphics in this track change version, but it is a clean version. Background conditions for environmental conditions. We talk about the environmental constraints. This was something that Rod had asked be added, identifying the wetlands on the Tappan Zee Elementary site. This was just because the table and the title were supposed to be summary, not detailed, but the details remain. On the dark sky lighting, this was the idea of removal of invasives, clarifying that any invasive removal will not involve chemical removal. So it was clarified that the idea of lowering zoning designations to prevent subdivisions would be in areas of environmental constraint. For traffic, again, we changed up to a introductory paragraph. G1 was revised to talk about a comprehensive traffic and parking plan that will actually take a look at current traffic levels throughout the village, parking availability, and come out with a comprehensive approach to improving those. The idea of remediating drainage problems, that wasn't the headline on that one. It's maintain the existing character of the Old Erie Path. Drainage problem solving is still in the description. Address speeding on village roads was added as a recommendation.
Would that be addressed as part of the?
Yeah, in the description, yeah, it talks about all of these recommendations are something that comprehensive traffic plan could address. So we removed the idea of sharrows. Those are things that had already been explored by the DPW and found not to be viable.
Because of the width of the road?
Because of the width of the road, correct. We added a reference to the village resolution for the Old Erie Path, clarifying that any further development that would compromise the integrity or environmental quality of the path or nearby homes is not desired. This is a formatting error caused by the track changes. This is actually the title for here, but that'll be correct on a clean version. With regard to wayfinding, I think we changed it. There's enough wayfinding. We just need coordinated things that look coordinated and are coordinated with each other.
One of the things that was suggested was signs that could come down, not just new signs that could go up.
The ferry service reference that was really just pointing to a recommendation that LWRP was removed. I don't think that the CPC had any desire to talk about ferry service from the pier, so that was removed. There was some talk here about the Crescent Road, which had been shown on some maps. It is a paper village street, and this is clarifying that it is a partially constructed paper street that could provide emergency-only access in the event that Ash Street or other village roads Ash Street becomes unusable when other village roads are flooded, but that it requires a bit more regular maintenance even for that. Address speeding on primary roads. This is a new recommendation, and it just identifies potential options that could be explored, from structural to increased enforcement to speed signs. Economic development, we did change. I know one of the things that the CPC wanted to stress here is that the way the current market conditions are, Piermont is not competitive in terms of providing local convenience commercial. It really is a destination-based commercial that is successful here.
Simply because the population, resident population is too small.
Too small. And we don't have a mill anymore that drives other people in. And most importantly, when all of those businesses existed in our downtown, there weren't all these chain store retailers within 5 miles where you can get the same product. Yeah, or Amazon.
So again, H5, the change there is just making it more succinct. Same thing with H6. They were fairly long titles. Clarified here that we want want to continue to regulate the short-term rentals. That last sentence was found as being sort of inconsequential to the CPC. There was a suggestion that we're going to look at appropriateness of economic development, that it's not just economic development that's being sought. So here, this is about, so previously, a previous version of this recommendation explored the idea of going through the zoning and adding new commercial uses. And the idea here was revised to instead provide a process whereby the village board, by special permit, could authorize special uses after a public hearing that would be similar to other uses already allowed in the zone, non-residential uses already allowed in the zone, that aren't more impactful. It's really just understanding that the village maintains zoning amendment requirements, but sometimes it's preferable to do a special use permit and allow an exception rather than rezoning the entire district or allowing a new use in the entire district.
Well, as a member of the Chamber of Commerce, what I appreciated about the change we made here was it balances somebody with a new business idea, gives them the opportunity to present it, but it still has to go through a public hearing if it's something that doesn't exist.
Right, and it's given legislative discretion, so the elected village board makes the decision, not, you know,
A board.
a
Appointed.
planning board
Right.
administering the code, right? So here, background conditions on cultural resource, we added some history of the town. Most of it taken from the previous report that was provided to the committee, which relied heavily on the Piermont Historical Society website, the LWRP, and the Cultural Resource Information System. We added the protected view sheds that are already identified here. This is an existing identification that was something that came out of our process. We got rid of the statement of expanding the number of historic districts. That was not the intent. It's historic landmarks, possibly. I-11 is, we had received comments that the CPC agreed that the pier has to be acknowledged as something that's critical to the character of the community. We clarified the idea of the ARC, that there should be somebody executing the functions of an ARC, either the planning board or an actually constituted ARC. So if the ARC is not constituted, like it has not been for some time, the planning board should be fulfilling that function. Here's the idea of the pier being a critical part of village life. We identify that there are other stakeholders who have commitments that should be reviewed and making sure they're meeting their commitments. Additionally, we talk about opportunities for new partners to increase usage, recreational usage of the pier. It also was added that the T-dock requires significant repair or replacement, and that the village should seek funds from federal or state agencies for that. So environmental, we added our introductory paragraph. J1's changes were again making it more succinct of a recommendation rather than trying to put the whole recommendation in the title, but it stayed the same in terms of its substance. Community and facilities, we made a number of changes. Talking about, during the comp plan, each village community service was interviewed for space needs, adequacy of facilities. So we added some of that background up front, because that wasn't found by some of the commenters. We also talked about ongoing improvements to the community center, where the children's playground is going to be upgraded for ADA accessibility. Talking about the DPW having identified its facilities as non-sufficient. Additionally, an inventory of village-owned land was added here, identifying the parcels that are owned by the village and their current use, and identifying 3 recreational resources that the village enjoys access to, but aren't owned by the village themselves. That is Eleanor Stroud Park, which is owned by Veolia, Flywheel Park, and Piermont Pier North Walkway, which are owned by private parties. We had several new recommendations to community facilities and service. Continue to build upon the community center, enhance village facilities and streets with trees. The idea that trees would provide children and seniors with more, agreeable, ways, shade to travel between facilities. The idea of exploring the management of the school district's athletic fields, since the village's athletic fields are becoming unusable on the waterfront, and better advertising open land use boards and committee positions. So when a committee position or land use board becomes available, the village should seek resumes or candidates and identify the qualifications that they're seeking with those. Additionally, the recreation plan was added here. The idea that we really need to look at not only what facilities we have, but what programs, especially those that are available or targeted to family members with young children. This recommendation suggests that if a committee is appointed to perform the rec plan, that it be staffed with members with young children, and that we do have to identify the future of Art Rittenberg Field, Oswick Pavilion, and the dog park, which are all going to be subject to sea level rise.
You may have to change something in the, we'll need to address, there's some, it's off by the thing.
What do you want to change?
One particular need that a recreation plan will need to address.
Could change need to issue, one particular issue.
No, they'll need and then will need, without an end or whatever. Confused about the language.
Okay, we'll reword that, maybe one particular issue that a rec plan will need to address, or one particular need that a recreational plan will address, to be addressed.
I thought the committee was recommending that the village form a committee to undertake preparation of the recreation plan. Because this sort of leaves it as it is. It says the village should ensure that any committee.
We could reword it to be clear that a committee should be formed, that first sentence.
Yes.
Alright, so this was about the community center. This was largely put together by Usha, about what's going on now. Enhance village facilities and streets with trees. We talked about this. This is the details. Same thing with that with the elementary ball fields and the advertising and seeking of candidates.
So on K13,
K13.
yeah, K13. I think we should establish to the village government that there should be annual outreach to build potential candidates for board and commission seats. Seats come up every year. We may not wish to wish to change them, but if we kind of wait, you don't have people lined up.
Right.
I think
Okay.
the outreach should be annual.
I think that's a good idea. And it also, if the person knows that they're a candidate, they may come to those board meetings or those committee
you want to make it clear that it's an ongoing, rolling basis. It's not when that vacancy occurs. It should be ongoing.
I just think it puts it on the village government to actually do that on an annual basis.
Okay. That is the last recommendation here. The only other issue, I think, with volume 2 does have to do with the CBM. The CPC initially had talked about putting a note in that the mention of CBM in the volume 2 was historic, meaning it was something you all went through, and this volume 2 is essentially the reports that you all received back in 2023, which mentioned the CBM. So there has been a lot of comment by the public about removing it from volume 2 as well. So I think the CPC needs to discuss that. We could change the note around. So right now the note reads, here's what happened with the CBM in terms of it being overturned by the court. And we're going to keep it in volume 2.
The wording.
It could be changed to, here's what happened with the CBM, and because of that, we're removing it from volume 2.
So I have a legal question. Is that okay? Do you want to go? No, it's a different one. I think it's a different one.
Okay, so what I'd like to discuss and agree upon is the second alternative, which is to include the note about the CBM at the time that we looked at the data, but take it out of the rest of volume 2, and that's okay.
And we are not removing a whole bunch of other stuff that's also changed. Like, if there are other maps and things, you know, it has changed,
The statement will say other things in this document have changed,
and we are not changing.
and we're not changing them,
We're
but
just
we are
changing
making
this
this change.
Okay, then I'm fine. I'm fine.
Does anybody have any issue with that change in volume 2? Is it clear what we're saying? So
Once again, Paul, we can.
So
Yeah,
we're
can we-
including a note
Mhm.
about the existence of the CBM data at the time that we were doing the plan over the last few years, but it will not show up in any of the tables and data in the volume 2 that we're now going to approve.
Yeah, I actually took an initial stab at it, so I can show you what it looks like. So you all remember that we had put that note with a footnote every time CBM showed up, and now a footnote say C note 1. Now all of those references to CBM and the footnotes get erased, and we have a different note up front, and this is how it differs. Try and make it clear. So the first paragraph, if you'll recall here, talks about, that volume 2 is essentially a compilation of all those reports and studies that you reviewed between March of 23 and January of 24. Paragraph 2 says that some of those things became outdated, and we know they're outdated, but you're acknowledging that no matter how long you wait, something's going to become outdated. You can't keep on going back. Then the third paragraph raises the idea that there was controversy regarding the inclusion of the outdated CBM in this volume 2. And the changes here are, again, instead of saying they were accurate at the time that the volume 2 studies were reviewed and therefore they're staying, we're saying they were accurate at the time of drafting, and therefore the CPC has decided to expunge all references to the CBM district for the volume that follows.
And just to recap, it's all been expunged in volume 1 already.
Yes.
Perfect.
So we go on that?
And that is the only change that was going to be made to volume 2, except Klaus just noted the land use map incorrectly identifies Art Rittenberg Field as parking instead of park. So that will be changed.
Okay, so given all of that recap, which is very helpful, thank you, Max, is there any other changes the committee hasn't seen that have not been made that you want to propose? Okay. Seeing that there's a quorum,
Can I ask a question? Why is the map A2 totally unreadable, at least in the document that I have seen? There's no legend. There are only dots instead of letters.
It's probably a formatting issue.
maybe the track change.
This is volume 2.
Yeah.
Is volume A2 zoning?
No, A2.
A2 is zoning, yeah, so this would be changed. Klaus, we would put the zoning map that's currently in volume 1 into volume 2. So this map that shows the CBM will be changed to the one that we did that doesn't show it, that's in volume 1.
Okay. Well, as long as the labels are readable.
I can show you what we have. I mean, let's see here.
I think they were readable in volume 1. And so I have a substantial question, but, you know, it's,
Here's the version in volume 1 as revised.
it really surprised me. And I looked at that zoning map.
And it has business B in the downtown and,
Yes, are
oh, you talking about here?
75 in places where I did not expect it, including the ball field and the pier and everything else.
Okay, so you're saying these might not be correct?
Well,
We'll double check.
I'm simply questioning.
Yeah, no, I mean, I believe those are correct.
That's the official zoning map that says the marsh can have single-family houses on it.
Yeah, I mean, so the R7, I would imagine that the R75 was the entire pier at some point, until the waterfront development came, then you had the RD East and the RD West. So it's sort of, you have to zone, just legally, you have to allow use of private property. You're not allowed to zone something for marsh or for open space. It has to allow some use, profitable use of the land. So usually, open space areas get zoned at the highest or the lowest density residential. This is fairly common practice.
Interesting.
If it's public land, you can. We have done park districts where if it's public, so if you know it's the state land, it's the village owns it, like in Montebello, Spook Rock Golf Course was rezoned to be only for recreational use.
Well, I mean, if the map stays like it is, should there be somewhere comment in volume 1 about this?
I think what you're asking is, do you want to rezone or suggest rezoning?
Well,
It's probably not necessary because it would
it
take,
boggles my mind when I see it, let's put it this way. The question is what to do about it.
so, I mean, if it's public land, you could change it, but it wouldn't really do that much for you, because if it's public parkland, it already takes an act of legislature to develop on it. So it's sort of harder to build on it than your zoning would convey anyway. Private land that is marsh, that would be, if you were to rezone that for recreational only, that would be a legal problem potentially for the village.
Because it's somebody's private
Because
park.
it's somebody, you're taking somebody's,
Property.
even if they don't have any legitimate practical way of building,
Mhm.
now through law, you're taking their rights away. So they could argue that you're taking.
You know, right, this is not new, this has been in existence.
That R75
Yeah.
has been there
But
long as
maybe-
Piermont probably.
I mean,
Piermont.
I would have liked this committee to take note of this peculiar. Let's put it this way.
Are you saying it's not peculiar? Or,
No, it's not. I mean, if you look at, for example, in Manicating, where you have that Shongum Ridge State Park, it's zoned mountain residential. I forget what, Ridgeline residential, I believe, something like that, that does allow homes, because amid that, and allows timber harvesting and other things.
because amongst that part, there's private land.
There, occasionally
Tracks.
along that zone, you have, it's mostly state park, but adjacent areas are private. You have to allow some use of those. You know, the reason why Montebello rezoned theirs is because they were nervous about, because I think the golf course was owned by the town of Ramville, not the village of Montebello. And they were nervous that if it stopped being a golf course, you know, could it be developed for things that are outside of their plan? So they want to see it remain as residential, but that's very different because it's a golf course.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would suggest if people feel strongly about that, that becomes comments for the next version of the drafts. And if that's okay, then, you know, we can move on to
That would be the Board of
yeah,
Trustees.
the Board of
At the Board of
Trustees.
Trustees.
I would be satisfied with that.
Okay.
Okay.
So the action before us is to approve this draft for transmission to the Board of Trustees for their process in deliberating it, collecting comments, and ultimately approving the plan. So do I have a motion for CPC to approve this draft?
Happy
With-
to make a,
Yeah.
With the changes that we've noted today.
happy to make a motion.
Second?
Next.
Okay. All those in favor of approving?
Aye.
Okay. So that is unanimous.
Just so the board's aware,
Second.
just so the board's aware, so what happens now is this draft plan will be transmitted once Max makes those changes that were reflected on the screen today. Under New York State Village Law, it's section 7-722, what happens now, your work as a committee, our work is done. So now, by that motion gets handed off to the village board now is tasked with holding further public hearings on the comp plan.
Starting seeker, yes.
Starting SECR, which is the State Environmental Quality Review Act, entertaining further public comment, and basically, they're gonna look at this now, and they're gonna have a chance to either revise, modify, accept as is, but now it's in their hands.
And
And as soon as the changes are made and it's practicable from the folks downstairs, we would get this posted in red line version so you can see what's changed, as well as a clean version to see the product as it is.
Which I think I can get done by Monday, if that is satisfactory with everyone here.
All right, with that, thank you very much.
Thank
And,
you.
Do have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, yeah. All those in favor? All right.